Stephanie is a supermom to her young child, Miles. She's very involved in his school life, and both the teacher and the other parents know her as a total go-getter who loves volunteering for everything. Stephanie's got that perkiness on steroids, bordering on painful awkwardness. She's like a kid's show host who was created in a suburban laboratory. She's a type A personality through and through. And while the other mommies like Stacy, Darren, and Sona subtly make fun of her for being too much, they acknowledge that their parenting is infinitely inferior to Stephanie's. In her free time, she runs a mommy vlog where she shares recipes, DIY ideas, and other parenting tips and hacks. Recently, though, people have been flocking to her videos for updates on her best friend, Emily. For the new viewers, Stephanie shares that 5 days ago, Emily asked her for a simple favor, pick up her son, Nicky, from school, and she hasn't returned since. Emily's disappearance has been so hard on everyone, but what this entire thing made Stephanie realize is that she never knew her best friend as well as she thought she did. It's not like they've known each other for a long time, though. In fact, she only met Emily a few weeks ago at their son's school. Miles and Nicky are best friends, and Nicky insists on having a play date at his house, but Stephanie wants to ask his mommy first. And speaking of the she-devil, mommy arrives. Meet Emily, Nicky's very elegant mother who's brimming with aura. She works as the PR director for fashion designer Dennis Nylon, and she can't be more different from Stephanie. For one, she tells Nicky that he can't have a playdate since she already has a playdate with a symphony of antidepressants. She also cusses freely and talks crudely around him, saying that she let him tear up her folds when she birthed him after being accused of never letting Nicky have any fun. In the end, though, she yields, but asks Stephanie to come over for martinis so she can tolerate the ordeal better. At Emily's gorgeous house, Stephanie awkwardly spots a painting of a bear and red-headed Emily, which the woman seems proud of. She did some art modeling in school to pay her way through, and the perv of a painter got obsessed with her. Emily ditched, but she made sure to steal the painting since she thought it was going to be worth something someday. No such luck. The painter was just almost famous, and her life's full of almost somebodies. Though her house is beautiful, Emily isn't happy with it. It's a money pit, and she likes music that makes her forget she's stuck in that crap hole. Her husband, Sean, wrote a book 10 years ago that catapulted him to fame, but he hasn't written anything since they got together. He also spends excessively despite having nothing, and she's left to pay for everything. As for Stephanie, she knows the book Sean wrote and read it for her book club, from when she first became a single mom. She lost her husband and her brother to a car accident, but luckily, her husband had life insurance. It's not a lot, though, and while half was put away for Miles's college fund, the other half will run out in about 2 years. Since Stephanie keeps instinctively apologizing for everything like talking too much, Emily tells her to stop the incessant sorry. It's a messed up female habit, and she doesn't have to apologize for anything. She jokingly threatens to slap the sorry out of her too, when Stephanie keeps at it. She then notices Emily's tattoo of a charity symbol, and her ring, which was a family heirloom that her husband's mother insisted she keep. Soon, Sean arrives, and he goes straight to making out with Emily. They can't keep their hands off each other, and he only pays attention to Stephanie when Emily says she read his book. Being an English major, Stephanie trots out Thackeray as a reference in his work, which impresses Sean. After that, he heads upstairs for a shower, leaving a very awkward Stephanie to comment on how cute they are as a couple. Smiling, Emily makes it clear they're on the verge of bankruptcy, and they can't find a decent nanny, so things aren't exactly peachy. Without hesitation, Stephanie offers to pick up Nicky after school and take him to her house should Emily need her to. In one of Stephanie's vlogs, she makes a tutorial on friendship bracelets. On that note, she never understood the division between working and stay-at-home moms since she has trouble making friends with both. As time goes by, she learns a couple things about Emily. One, she has a morbid sense of humor as she jokes about how the nicest thing she can do for Nicky is to blow her brains out. 2, Emily hates getting her picture taken, and when Stephanie took a candid one of her for the yearbook, she coldly threatened her into deleting it. 3, Emily talks down on her boss because she thinks that you gotta go right at the powerful people, or they'll screw you in the face. After giving the friendship bracelet to a touched Emily, Stephanie also learns that a couple months ago, Emily and Sean invited his female TA over for a trio. As for Emily, she learns that Stephanie met her half-brother Chris during her dad's funeral, and in that same night, she hooked up with him. Emily is equal parts scandalized and delighted by that news, and she happily announces that she's got a brother effer taking care of her kid. One day, Emily calls Stephanie and asks her to pick up Nicky. She sounds troubled as she shares that Sean's in London because his mother broke her hip, while she has a big fire to put out at work. When Stephanie readily agrees, Emily calls her a good person and a true friend, which makes her happy. A full day passes and Emily doesn't come back for Nicky, nor can she be reached. Stephanie worriedly calls her office, and her assistant, Valerie, says she's in Miami for a few days, but she doesn't seem to know when she'll be back or what she's even doing there. On the second day, Stephanie finally contacts Sean, who flies back the next night so they can contact the authorities. Unfortunately for Sean, the cops think he has something to do with Emily's disappearance since that's usually the case, plus the timing is sketchy. Stephanie immediately comes to his defense and claims that he's a very dedicated husband and father. She asks the cops to drop that angle, so they move on to ask about Emily's family. Sean explains that she's an only child. Her parents died when she was a teenager, which Stephanie didn't know about. In the end, Emily is a complete enigma, even to the people closest to her like Sean and Stephanie. Sean can't even think of where she could possibly be. He has no pulse on what his wife could be thinking. Perhaps this is all by design. Emily's an extremely private person, to the point that she refuses to have photos of her anywhere. In fact, the only picture of hers that could be found in her home is the painting. This begs the question, why? What could Emily be avoiding or hiding from? And does it have anything to do with her disappearance? So far, she's hinted that she isn't happy with her life and her husband because of the crushing debt they've accumulated, Sean's inability to do anything about it, and his inability to write. Stephanie can't see that, though. To her, Emily has a wonderful life that she might even be jealous of. Her house is beautiful, her kitchen is amazing, and Stephanie would just love to live in it. More than that, she has Sean, a living, breathing husband who clearly adores her. Plus, Sean's a novelist while Stephanie was an English major. There's a lot of things for Stephanie to be envious of, but that doesn't mean that she isn't genuinely concerned about Emily. She's her first true friend in her motherhood, after all. As it stands, there are few suspects for Emily's disappearance. The main one, of course, is her husband, who was conveniently in England at the time of Emily's departure, though he was actually seen with his mother. There's also Emily's boss, Dennis Nylon, who she has a habit of talking down on. It's quite strange that her assistant doesn't know why she's in Miami when she's supposedly putting out a big work fire. And finally, there's Emily herself. She mentioned antidepressants. She mentioned just wanting to forget that she's in her crap hole of a house. There's a likelihood of her just deciding to hit the reset button and get away from her debt-filled life. But would she just up and abandon Nikki? As crude as she is, she seems to love her kid, and she gives him unprompted affection when picking him up from school. Bit by bit, Sean and Stephanie are getting closer to each other, and she even defends him in her vlog, saying that he's an amazing husband and father, and that he had an alibi, so people should stop thinking that he's the reason behind Emily's disappearance. She then goes to Dennis Nylon himself to ask about her whereabouts, but he doesn't even know that she's in Miami. Since he's a dead end, Stephanie sneaks into Emily's office, where she finds a printed photo of her with the words, "Gotta have faith," written on it. It isn't a very flattering image, and Stephanie thinks that it's no wonder she doesn't like having her picture taken. After nabbing the photo, she walks out of the office, only to get stopped by Dennis. His staff grabs her as he sizes Stephanie up, asking if she's a corpo spy or a shoplifter. Though she's intimidated at first, Stephanie remembers what Emily said about how to deal with powerful people. She verbally rips Dennis a new one. This has him backing off, and Stephanie gets to walk away trouble-free. After that, she makes dozens of missing posters with Emily's photo and plasters them all over town with Sean helping her. Darren, Stacy, and Sona watch her, and they lightly gossip about the husband and the best friend. Stephanie also relays whatever information she could get from the cops to her vlog, and eventually, a viewer messages her with a possible Emily sighting. But it's not in Miami, it's in Michigan. She alerts the authorities, and eventually Sean is notified that Emily's been found at a lake. He hurries there, but to his utter horror, his wife was found underwater. She's dead. Her funeral is attended by her workmates and the other parents, who are finally expressing support and offering assistance to Stephanie, but not without Darren admitting that they used to watch her vlog to make fun of her, only to find helpful tips there. Nicky struggles to cope with his mother's death, and after the funeral, he takes his anger out on Miles by punching him, and he tells Sean that Emily's right, he is a loser. He also accuses Stephanie of making his mom die so she can replace her. Luckily, Stephanie's able to handle Nicky, and she assures him that what he's feeling is normal, and he's still a good kid. That night, Stephanie and Sean find solace in each other, and when the tension between them overflows, they finally sleep together. Following that, she makes herself feel more at home at their house. She removes the painting from the living room and brings it to her fabulous walk-in closet, where she nabs a dress for her to try on. Unfortunately, Detective Somerville starts knocking on the door, and just her luck, the zipper gets stuck. As a result, Stephanie's forced to face the detective in all her awkwardly perky glory while wearing Emily's alluring black dress. First things first, he asks if Emily was depressed, and Stephanie's quick to answer no. She had everything, after all. The house, the job. Then Somerville finishes her sentence for her by saying, the husband. Next, he says that the couple fought a lot according to the neighbors, and Stephanie gets defensive as she agrees that they had money issues, but they loved each other intensely. Finally, Somerville reveals that Emily's autopsy report showed that she suffered from heavy substance abuse, which Stephanie finds hard to believe. Sean also took out a $4 million life insurance policy on Emily before she disappeared. Now, Somerville clearly suspects her given her closeness with Sean, but he's never direct about it. After he leaves, she goes through the couple's financial papers, rifling through their overdue bills until she finds an empty insurance envelope, with a sticky note of Sean asking Emily to sign it. Perturbed, Stephanie goes to the college Sean works at, only to find him getting chummy and touchy with his TA. She watches on in quiet rage, but doesn't say a word. Stephanie's now very wary of Sean. That night over dinner, Nicky insists that he saw Emily at school. When Stephanie sternly reprimands him for lying, he cusses her and runs away. But that night, when he sees Miles getting a goodnight kiss from Stephanie, he asks for one too. She gently obliges, only to find Emily's friendship bracelet on his bedside table. In their room, Stephanie tells Sean that she smells Emily's perfume all over Nicky, but he thinks that Nicky just got to her perfume in the medicine cabinet. When she brings up the friendship bracelet that he doesn't recognize, he says that Emily would not have kept that. She probably gave it to Nicky right away. But since Stephanie's unconvinced, Sean reminds her that she saw Emily's corpse, her tattoo, and the ring she stole from his mother. As it turns out, his father gave his mother that ring, and Emily was proud of stealing it. When Stephanie brings up their three-way with the TA, Sean clarifies that Emily lied about that too. She was a total pathological liar. As for the $4 million insurance, Sean did it because of Stephanie. When Emily learned about her late husband's insurance money, she thought that they needed to get their policies in order for Nicky's sake. It was probably the most responsible thing they ever did, and it's thanks to Stephanie. With all that out of the way, Sean urges her to move in with them. Stephanie made him a better man, and he feels at peace around her. It's a stark contrast from how it was with Emily, where he always felt like he could never be the man she wanted him to be. He couldn't even write anymore since she's all he could pour into. Despite her initial reluctance, she finally agrees, and they happily exchange their I love yous. Sean has now painted a clear picture of Emily. She's an unpredictable woman who is much of a liar as she is secretive, but at this point, it's her word against his. After all, the police have all the reasons to suspect Sean. Money problems and insurance aside, Stephanie found the puzzle pieces herself, one of which was Sean's TA, who's a little too close to him for comfort. The story writes itself. Sean, disenchanted by his marriage with his impossible wife, decided to take her out of the picture so he can be with his TA, who he's still touchy-feely with despite being in a relationship with Stephanie. As for Stephanie, it's quite odd that she didn't mention Emily's offbeat comments about antidepressants and shooting herself when the detective asked if she was depressed. Perhaps she just had this tunnel vision that told her, since Emily had everything she wanted, she should be perfectly fine. It's moving time for Stephanie. She gets rid of Emily's clothes and shoes, puts up a wholesome painting on the living room wall, and sells her house. But just as she's taking her things to Emily's walk-in closet, she screams in horror upon seeing that all the clothes and shoes she got rid of are back. All Stephanie can do is get on her vlog and subtly get a message out to Emily, saying that she's irreplaceable, and all she's doing is loving the people she loved as best as she could. One day, Stephanie receives an envelope from Nikki, who says that his mom wants her to have it. She opens the envelope and sees something that makes her stomach drop. It's a family photo of her, Miles, her husband, and Chris. But her and Chris's faces are encircled, with the word brother effer written below. Someone then calls her, and to her horror, it's Emily, who's apparently in heaven, watching over her. Nice blouse, by the way. An increasingly anxious Stephanie asks why she's doing this, and Emily asks, how does she know it's just her doing this? Oh, by the way, she should kiss Sean for her, 4 million times. After the call, Stephanie storms in Sean's office in college. His TA walks in the room, flirtily calling him handsome, but upon realizing that Stephanie's there, she quickly backs off. When they're alone again, she demands Sean to cut out whatever it is he and Emily are plotting against her. She says that Emily called her, but Sean isn't taking her seriously at all. He thinks she's just going through the stages of grief and asks her to take a Xanax. Take 2. A defeated Stephanie stares at Emily's painting in her walk-in closet, and there, she remembers telling Emily how it's her fault she lost everything. Her husband, Davis, suspected that there's something more going on between her and her brother, Chris. He even asked if Miles is really his son. Later on, Davis got in the car with Chris, who assured Stephanie they're just going to talk things out man to man. But Davis was glaring at Stephanie the entire time. Little did Stephanie know, that would be the last time she'll see the most important men in her life. After telling the story, Stephanie broke into tears. She's just so lonely. Hell, she thinks loneliness kills more people than cancer. Emily assured her that people do messed up things for their own selfish reasons before drawing Stephanie close. The next thing she knew, the two of them were kissing. She pulled away from Emily before things got too heated, and though she's embarrassed, Emily assured her it's okay. Back in the present, Stephanie notices that the artist's name is on the painting, so she takes it and drives to the crude Diana Highland, who's surprised to see the painting. Now, Diana didn't know Emily as Emily, she knew her as Claudia. She came into Diana's life right as she was getting some buzz in her career, and just like that, Emily was all she could paint, though the painting Stephanie has is the only one with her face. Her obsession wasn't appreciated by the critics and her agent, yet Diana gave her heart and soul to that con artist. She put her through college and paid off her debts, but one day, Emily just vanished completely, and it takes money to vanish, so she took everything she could from Diana. As for substances, Emily never touched that. She also finds out that Emily used to go to the Squaw Lake Bible Camp in Michigan, which she goes to immediately after. She asks the camp directors if she could see some old albums and yearbooks, and there, Stephanie finds the strangest thing, a pair of twins named Hope and Faith McClandon. At the back of the yearbook, it says that the Bible camp thanks the McClandon family for their generous donation. Through a lot of digging and calling, Stephanie tracks down a woman named Margaret McClandon. Her memory's failing her, but she's Hope and Faith's mother. Stephanie pretends to be a cleaner and asks about Faith, but Margaret doesn't have a single good thing to say about her. She thinks Faith was born rotten, and she came straight from hell. Some children don't need a parent, they need an exorcist, and her husband knew that. They spent so much money sending her to rehab, and her twin sister, Hope, tried to help take care of her and get her off that stuff. But Hope herself is a born liar with terrible posture. Additionally, their house burned down several years ago, but she and her husband were estranged when it happened, so they lived in separate wings of the house. Now armed with more knowledge about Emily, Stephanie heads to the library to look up arson news clippings. Lo and behold, she finds one with the headline, "Teen twins vanish after deadly house fire." Immediately after, she posts on her vlog, where she explains that she's in Michigan to help her find closure for her best friend's death. She went to the lake where she drowned to see if she could dredge something up. And wouldn't you know it, Emily's watching from her own motel room, and she catches what Stephanie's actually saying. Stephanie mentions Bible camp, the camp journals, and she even shows off a photo of Emily as a kid, saying that her middle name is Claudia. Not pretty, she comments, while Emily's just in awe of how crazy Stephanie is. She goes on to say that she feels even closer to Emily now, almost like a twin. Stephanie closes the vlog off by saying that she hopes Emily is listening, and that she just gotta have faith. In her rage, Emily trashes her room while a very victorious Stephanie raps along to ante up Robin Hood's theory. But she ain't done, no sir. She emails and calls up some insurance workers to let them know about Emily's family situation. And so it makes sense now. Emily refuses to have her photo up anywhere for fear of the police or anyone from her past identifying her and tracking her down. That's why she took the painting from Diana. She had no intentions of selling it, unlike what she told Stephanie. Emily just took it because it's the only painting that had her face on it. It also looks like Stephanie's skill set has come in clutch during her investigation. Her intense attention to detail, her knowing just what to say to gather information without being suspicious, and her knowing where to look altogether, and her amazing administrative work. Let's just say that a lot of her mommy skills have been very transferable to her detective endeavors. So it's not that Stephanie underwent a serious metamorphosis, she's mostly just branching out. Meanwhile, Emily gives Sean the spook of his life by meeting him at a restaurant. She's all smiles, as she calls him dumb for not figuring out that she arranged the meeting with him at the restaurant where they spend their anniversaries at. As for why she did this, she has 4 million reasons why. It's all for Nikki. She hates her job since she never gets to see him, but it's not like they could live off of Sean's faculty buffet. Also, screw him for grieving her death inside her best friend. Emily had to lie low until she got the insurance money, but she couldn't resist visiting Nikki. That's her little dude. Their problem now is Nancy Drew knows too much, and if she screws up Emily's insurance, she's taking Sean with her. Sean's appalled, and Emily pretends that it was his plan all along, despite him stressing that he had nothing to do with it. As he calls her psychotic, she whips out her gun and cocks it, promptly shutting him up. Amused, Emily asks if he loves Stephanie, and he answers he's just using her for pleasure. He also agrees when Emily asks if he thinks of her when betting Stephanie. Sean says he loves her, while Stephanie means nothing to him. Once Emily's satisfied, she shoots her gun, only to reveal that it's unloaded. Hysterical. When Sean gets home, he's greeted by the sight of Stephanie with an insurance agent, who now knows that Emily had a twin. The corpse in the lake could be hers, so they'll have to continue the claims investigation. Once the agent's gone, Sean frustratedly tries to confront Stephanie for knowing about the twin, but she only tells him to take a Xanax. No, 2. After that, Stephanie's on her vlog again. She sounds much more confident and self-assured now as she tells her viewers she'll be heading to Emily's tomb so she can make a tribute to her with dry martinis. And that's exactly what Stephanie does, with Emily casually joining her for a drink. She first reveals that she's not a twin. They're actually triplets. Faith, Hope, Charity, with Charity being stillborn. Her mother thought they offed her in the womb, and their dad believed her. Stephanie comments on how cold old Margaret is, and adds that it must have been Faith's idea to set the fire. But then again, all the bad ideas were Faith's. She also supposes that her father liked to hit them, and he did. When he caught Hope and Faith sneaking out so Faith could make out with a boy, he dragged them home and beat Faith while Hope, or Emily, sobbed and watched. Thus, they were 16. They wanted to get away from their father, so she and Faith hit the reset button and burned their house down. Stephanie's right on the money, but Emily neither confirms nor denies her words. She then asks why she and Faith left each other, and Emily explains that they couldn't stay together after the fire since the cops were looking for the blonde arson twins. They stuck out like a sore thumb, so they decided to get matching tattoos and split up. They were supposed to meet after the smoke cleared, but Faith never showed up. Then one day, Faith called, so Emily fabricated her trip to Miami to meet up at the old camp. It was their happy place, the only place where they could escape their father. Looking at Faith was like looking at the mirror, except at the sick life she chose over Emily. She was a full-blown addict, skinny, she had nothing, and yet, nothing's changed between them. Emily was still intimidated by Faith, that when she spoke out of turn, and Faith called her out on it, she immediately cowered. Anyway, Faith's there to ask her for $1 million, and if she doesn't give it, she'll tell the cops about what they did, so they'll go down together and be together again. She also mentioned Nikki a couple of times, which made Emily's skin crawl. Because of that, she agreed to give her the money as long as Faith kept quiet. Pleased, Faith stripped and went to the lake for a swim, and she urged Emily to join her. Finally, Emily allowed herself to be vulnerable, and with a heartbroken look, she told Faith that she abandoned her. Faith solemnly apologized and accepted Emily's embrace, but Emily also apologized before suddenly drowning her sister. When Faith died, Emily tearfully put her ring on her finger, kissed her head, and let her sink into the lake. In the present, however, she refuses to admit to Stephanie that she killed Faith. She claims that she just woke up the next morning and found her twin's body in the lake, but Stephanie doesn't believe her. But enough of that. What does Sean know? Everything, Emily says. It was his idea. She lies about not knowing what to do once she found the body, and he said that could be their opportunity to get out of debt, flee the country, and spend more time with Nikki. To convince Stephanie that Sean's a phony, she lets her listen in on the recording of their conversation, where he tells Emily he loves her and that Stephanie means nothing to him. Though she's hurt by what she's hearing, Stephanie steels herself and appears unaffected. But since she messed up her insurance plan, all Emily wants is Nikki back. She can have her piece of crap husband, and Stephanie's quick to say she doesn't want him either. Well, if that's the case, Emily says there's one thing they can do. The two conspire to incriminate Sean, which works. Over the next couple of days, the police have seized his office in the college and started an open investigation on him. Frustrated and humiliated, he tries to go to Stephanie's house, but she innocuously bars him from entry because of said investigation. One lovely day, Stephanie's busy cooking when Sean leaves her a voicemail, talking about how good of a mom she is, and how she made him a better dad. But truth is, he never knew his wife or what she's capable of. As for said wife, Emily's pulling an Amy Dunn as she throws a wrench in the air and waits for it to hit her face with a smile. What follows is an absolute takedown of Sean Townsend. Emily finally reveals herself and her bruised face to the police, and she makes headlines as she accuses Sean of forcing her to stage her own death to collect the $4 million life insurance policy. Bail for Sean will be set that day, and though Emily's an accomplice to fraud, she's complying with the authorities for clemency. Emily's come real far from being Hope, the girl who just listened to Faith and went along with everything she said. Survival made a beast out of Emily, one who just took and took from whoever she could. It's no coincidence that she's surrounded herself with almost somebodies. She met Diana when she was finally gaining traction in her career, and Diana financially and emotionally poured into her, but her career didn't take off. And Emily moved on to Sean, who was a buzzing novelist at the time. In the end, He stopped writing the moment he got with Emily. Most people she pursued burned with passion, became obsessed with her, and saw the end of their potential. Stephanie was quite like that, except that she never let her obsession consume her. If anything, her obsession with Emily elevated her and introduced her to things about herself that have been lying dormant. Now that he's out and about, Sean makes his way to his house. But instead of finding Stephanie there, he sees a very gleeful Emily, who's acting like everything's just fun and games for her. He accuses her of putting those incriminating files on his computer, which she agrees to, but she notes that she had a little help from Stephanie. He tries to get on her cause for not telling him about her twin despite being her husband, so Emily casually fires back about him sleeping with her best friend. As for said best friend, she just uploaded a new vlog where she sounds a little too perky. She tells the moms that she's more shocked than they are about the recent development. It looks like Sean and Emily had their own secrets, while she was the naive romantic all caught up in the middle. Still, Stephanie says she loves her viewers, and she hopes they can forgive her for what she's about to do. Moms, do everything yourself, she says at the end of her vlog. To Emily and Sean's surprise, Stephanie suddenly walks in with a gun that she aims at Sean. He nervously tries to appeal to her sensibilities, but Stephanie can't be reasoned with, not after he told her he loved her only to laugh at her behind her back. Emily tries to calm her down, but Sean quickly points out that she hated Stephanie, and that she used to watch her vlogs just to tear her apart. Stephanie just smiles through the pain and says that all she wanted was to be Emily's friend, and Emily says she was, until she screwed her husband and her insurance plan. In any case, Stephanie's doing Emily a favor by killing Sean. Doesn't she want revenge for her sister? This has Emily stammering that he didn't technically kill Faith, but when she doesn't elaborate, Stephanie goes screw this and shoots Sean in the chest. But as soon as the man falls, Stephanie snaps out of it. The gravity of what she's done hits her like a brick, and she quickly tries to tend to Sean. But he deserved to be killed, right? She looks at Emily for confirmation, and the woman tearfully says no, it was her. She killed her sister. But immediately after that, she breaks into a smile and kicks Sean, telling him to get up. Show's over. At that, Stephanie awkwardly backs away while Sean gets up. As it turns out, Emily saw the mics the cops planted, and she cut off the wires so any confession they get out of her would be useless, and Stephanie won't be able to clear Sean's name like she wanted. Besides, it's not like she's going to confess to protect her yeast infection of a husband. Still, Emily's really impressed with her, so Stephanie thanks her for the compliment. That aside, look what she has, an actual gun. Stephanie and Sean quickly grow tense, with Stephanie saying that she can't shoot them since the police are outside, but Emily's got that covered. She already pretended to be Stephanie and called the cops earlier, telling them to go to Darren's house. Speaking of Darren, he's currently blazing it up with Sona and Stacy when the cops suddenly raid his house, so he quickly gets down and screams that he has a prescription for this. He has ocular pressure. Emily's been on the run for 10 years, so this kind of thing is light work for her. Now that they know too much and will go through extreme lengths to take her down, she can pretend that Stephanie killed Sean and then herself. His insurance should cover that, right? With that, she shoots Sean on the shoulder. And while he's writhing in pain, Emily saunters towards Stephanie. She tries to get Emily to ease off, but Emily points out that she killed her dad and her sister, so why wouldn't she be able to kill her husband-effing best friend? Hearing that, a smiling Stephanie awkwardly asks if she's really her best friend, and if she's not just saying this, so Emily assures her that she really is her bestie. That's good, since both of them are worried that it's just them thinking that and not the other. They have a quick and cheery conversation about the difficulties of making friends as a working and full-time mom while Sean is hurt as hell on the ground. Stephanie starts yapping about her vlog too, and how it's just getting bigger and bigger, and oh, she has a great idea. If Emily comes on the vlog and confess to killing her father, sister, and holding her at gunpoint, she might hit 1 million subscribers. Emily smiles in amusement, which quickly drains from her face when Stephanie reveals that they're actually live streaming right now. Turns out that one of the buttons on her blouse is actually a nanny cam. Cursing, Emily bolts out of the house and into the road with Stephanie chasing after her. She urges her not to do this to Nikki since she's still his mom, and that makes Emily turn to face her. She aims her gun at Stephanie and tells her she sure as hell won't be Nikki's. But before she could do anything, she gets Regina Georged as a car hurls at her, flipping poor Emily over. From the car emerges Darren, who proudly touts America's hybrids. Silent, but deadly. The cops arrive as he approaches Emily, saying that he saw her on the vlog. If she screws with one of the moms, she screws with them all. Alas, his heroic monologue gets cut short as Emily punches him in the nuts. The bleeding woman tries to crawl away and escape while Stephanie's asking her to stop in a very condescendingly sweet way. In the end, Emily is taken away by the cops, and Stephanie sarcastically says she's sorry, before quickly remembering to take it back. Oopsie, she's still working on that. All's well that ends well. Stephanie's vlog really took off, now boasting of exactly 1 million subscribers. Her kitchen's a lot nicer now, and she's branched out to taking on unsolved mysteries because it turns out that she has a nose for sniffing out the freshest basil, and criminals who thought they got away with it. Thanks to the smashing success of her vlog, it's recently purchased by a publishing giant that plans on turning it into a daily morning show, while her agencies brought over 30 dangerous fugitives to justice. As for her love life, she's currently dating someone from the city. Good for her. Meanwhile, Sean finally released his second novel, which became a bestseller, though it's been criticized for being far-fetched. He's now the head of the literature department at UC Berkeley, where he lives with Nikki. And Emily? She's serving a 20-year sentence for killing her father, sister, and shooting her ex-husband over the infamous live stream. She's adjusted to prison life nicely, though, and she spends all her big D energy dominating the other women in sports. In the end, what saved Stephanie from Emily's gun was community, the very thing she was seeking from the beginning. Though Darren ended up getting punched in the jewels for it, he protected Stephanie with a blatant declaration of unity with her as a fellow parent, or mom, as he puts it. Stephanie didn't start out as Miss Congeniality. Everyone made fun of her for being too much, and the other parents even thought that she was just nannying for free. But her earnestness made them come around and realize that for all her oddities, Stephanie's just trying her best. She just wants to make friends. Because while she loves every minute of being a mom, her life shouldn't revolve entirely around it. It's her desire for maternal community that led her to Emily, who was an outcast to it herself. But unlike Stephanie, she kept everyone at an arm's length. She had no qualms with taking advantage of others to get what she wanted. So Emily was doomed to be alone. Ironically, this whole mess brought the both of them to where they need to be. Stephanie's now being watched and respected by at least 1 million people all around the world, and she chirpily calls her subscribers her friends. She also got herself another job that doesn't revolve around motherhood necessarily. Now, Stephanie's free from the guilt she's been carrying because she saw with her own eyes that people do messed up things for their own selfish reasons, like Emily said, and she finally got to properly dating. As for Emily, she may be in prison, but she's freer now. She doesn't have to keep looking over her shoulder. She has nothing else to fear. Emily's tough enough that she's actually thriving in jail. And the crazy thing is, she looks fabulous while doing it.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.